a new community to the Lord.
Get away! Get away! Oh, shout! Get You want to take him? No. Get the shit going.
The story begins in the year 1823, deep within the vast and unforgiving wilderness of the American frontier. Amid the thick forest and icy rivers, a group of fur trappers are out hunting for pelts. Among them is a quiet but skilled frontiersman named Hugh Glass. He's not alone. His teenage son Hawk, who is half Native American, is with him. They're navigating the wild, hoping to gather enough to make it through the brutal winter. But the peace is short-lived. Without warning, their camp is ambushed by a fierce Native American tribe.
Go get the captain. Walk. Stay here! No! Nobody move! Just stay where you are!
These native warriors aren't attacking without reason. Their chief's daughter has been kidnapped, and they believe the white men are behind it. However, Glass and a handful of survivors manage to escape the slaughter, but nearly everyone else is killed in the attack. Only 10 men survive the massacre. They jump aboard their boat and begin drifting down the river, trying to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the warriors. But the danger hasn't passed. Glass warns them that the river isn't safe for long. He knows this land well. It's the home territory of the very people who attacked them. They could be watched at any moment. The group's leader, Captain Andrew, turns to Glass for guidance. Glass tells them their only real chance of survival is to abandon the riverboat and cut through the forest on foot. One of the men, a loud and selfish trapper named Fitzgerald, strongly disagrees. He argues that the land is far more dangerous and will take weeks to cross. But the captain trusts Glass. He's been through this land before, and in the end, he orders everyone to follow Glass through the forest. They set their boat adrift, hoping that if the tribe follows the river, they'll be thrown off the trail. As they march into the cold, wild forest, the group knows the path ahead won't be easy. The cold bites at their skin. At night, they sleep under trees, huddled near the fire, and when morning comes, native tribe investigating the empty boat and the trap worked. But one of them points out fresh footprints in the snow, heading north. As the group continues their difficult journey north through the harsh wilderness, the days grow colder and the terrain even more treacherous. After a long day of marching through snow and forest, they make camp for the night. At dawn, before anyone else wakes, Hugh Glass quietly gets up and grabs his rifle and walks into the woods to scout the area. That's when something feels off. Suddenly, he spots a couple of bear cubs playing just a few feet away, and before he can even back away, the mother grizzly explodes from the brush. When she finally backs off for a moment, Glass, barely conscious, drags himself toward his gun. With all his remaining strength, he fires. The shot hits her, but it's not enough. She tosses him like a ragdoll, her claws ripping into his back and neck. Glass is left mangled, bleeding out in the dirt. Somehow, he finds his knife, and when the bear comes at him a third time, then they tumble down a slope, rolling through leaves and mud, until the massive bear crashes on top of him. The bear is dead, but so is nearly all of Glass. His throat is torn and his leg broken. He gasps for air, groaning in agony. Just then, the other men from his group find him. They rush to pull the dead bear off his crushed body. Then one of the men begins stitching his wounds, but his throat is ripped open. His leg is useless. He can't talk and he can't walk.
God, the whole place is crawling with fucking tree niggers. Hey, that's enough! That's enough!
The surviving trappers build a makeshift stretcher and load Glass onto it. They try to carry him through the mountainous terrain, but the incline is steep, the snow deep, and the man is nearly dead weight. Moving him becomes nearly impossible. Captain Henry faces a terrible decision. He quietly instructs one of the men to cover Glass's face with a cloth. He's about to end his life, not out of cruelty, but mercy. There's no way to get him out alive, and he's clearly suffering. But before he can act, Glass's son Hawk sees what's happening and pleads with them not to do it. The captain also hesitates, and out of respect for Glass because what he's already done for them is relents. Then he offers $70 to anyone willing to stay behind and watch over Glass until he dies a natural death. When that happens, they're to bury him properly and then return to the group. Hawk immediately volunteers, and another young trapper, Bridger, does too. Then steps in Fitzgerald, the same man who doubted Glass earlier. He says $70 isn't enough. After some negotiation, the captain agrees to pay him $100. Hawk and the young man even offer to give up their shares to make it work. Finally, Fitzgerald agrees for $300.
$300? You should get to go home with something.
Then the rest of the group, having moved on, only 4 men now remain behind. But as the days pass, Fitzgerald grows impatient. Later, he's convinced that Glass won't survive more than a day or two. But Glass doesn't die. Against all odds, he breathes, suffers, and endures. One evening, as Bridger and Hawk steps away, Fitzgerald approaches the helpless Glass. Kneeling beside him, he coldly whispers, "Why won't you just die?" "Because of you, we're all at risk. If the native tribe finds us here, they'll kill us all. But if you die, you save us. You save your son." Then, without waiting for consent, Fitzgerald presses his hand over Glass's nose and mouth, determined to suffocate him.
Get away! Get away! Yeah! Oh, shout!
Helpless and broken, he stares as his son bleeds out in front of him. Fitzgerald, now fully consumed by self-preservation, drags Hawk's body behind a ridge, hiding the evidence. He knows Bridger could return at any moment, and when the Bridger come back, Glass desperately tries to warn him. But he can't make a sound. His eyes scream the truth, but his body betrays him. Bridger doesn't know what's happened. Later that night, the 2 remaining men, Fitzgerald and Bridger, sleep under the freezing stars. At dawn, Fitzgerald wakes Bridger with panic in his voice. He whispers that a group of native warriors are just over the ridge and headed their way. Terrified, Bridger asks where Hawk is. Fitzgerald replies coldly, "If he's alive, he'll find us." But Bridger says they made a promise to the captain. They were supposed to wait until Glass died and then give him a proper burial. But Fitzgerald has no interest in promises now. He grabs Glass roughly and drags his injured body across the ground. Glass groans in agony, but Fitzgerald has already dug a shallow grave. Without emotion, he rolls Glass into it and begins covering him with dirt. Before we continue with the video, I have a small request for you all. 99% of viewers watch the videos but don't subscribe to the channel. So if you're enjoying the video, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button. It really helps a lot. After covering him with dirt, Fitzgerald tells the boy to follow quickly. Although Bridger doesn't want to leave, but he fears for his life too. So he places his water bottle on Glass and escapes, unaware that Fitzgerald was lying. There were no native tribes nearby. Now Glass is left completely alone, in agony, and on the verge of death. For hours, he lies half-buried, barely alive, until he gathers every bit of strength and drags himself to the spot where his son's body lies. He rests his head on his son's chest and stays there for hours. Eventually, hunger forces him to crawl toward an old carcass where he breaks a bone with dried meat still stuck to it and eats it. Then, slowly dragging himself to the edge of a hill, he sees a river below and somehow reaches its banks. When he drinks the water, it leaks out of the gash in his neck. Then, using some gunpowder he has left, he pours it directly into the wound, lights a spark, and sears it shut with fire. Screaming in pain before losing consciousness, Glass remains by the river for days, surviving on grass and sips of water. One day, a group of native warriors spot him, and before they can attack, he dives into the river and lets the current carry him to safety. Days pass by the riverside, and though his wounds slowly heal, he barely survives by catching an occasional fish. One night, he sees flames in the distance and discovers a man cooking a large animal. When the man notices Glass, he raises his bow in defense, but Glass signals that he needs food and explains through gestures that a bear attacked him. His own men left him to die, and they killed his son. The man, whose own family and village were burned down, offers him food and shelter. He invites Glass to travel with him, and since he has a horse, their journey becomes somewhat easier. Meanwhile, on the other side, Fitzgerald and the young boy who had left Glass to die are making their way through the forest. During their journey, the boy begins to realize that Fitzgerald had lied. There were no native warriors nearby that day. Fitzgerald had used that lie just to save himself. Shocked and betrayed boy points a gun at him, but Fitzgerald manages to manipulate him with his words and convinces him to keep moving. As they continue, They pass through a village that's been completely destroyed, its people slaughtered. There they find 2 horses and ride them to their destination. Just before entering the outpost, Fitzgerald warns the boy never to tell the truth, saying if the truth gets out, they'll both be hanged. When they arrive, Captain and his team are already there. The captain, keeping his promise, hands both men $100 each, but the boy walks away without taking his share. Fitzgerald claims the boy is in shock from the journey and accepts the money on his behalf. Deep down, the boy feels guilt. He knows they've done something they never should have. Meanwhile, Glass continues his journey through the snowy wilderness with the native man who saved him. But a violent snowstorm begins, and Glass, still weak and infected, collapses. So the man builds a small shelter from wood, undresses Glass and places him inside. Then he covers him completely and lights a fire to keep him warm. The next morning, Glass wakes up to find the man gone. As he walks ahead, he sees the man hanging from a tree, executed by French soldiers. Nearby, a Frenchman is assaulting a native girl. That night, he sleeps under a tree. By morning, native warriors spot him. The horse dies in the fall, but miraculously, Glass survives. Though Glass had survived the fall off the cliff, he was now faced with another deadly threat: the freezing cold. The bearskin he had been using to keep himself warm had been left behind on the mountaintop. With no other option, he slits open the dead horse's belly, pulls out its innards, and crawls inside the carcass to survive the night. He knew if he stayed outside, he would freeze to death. He spends the entire night inside the horse's body, using its warmth as a shield against the bitter cold. By morning, he emerges and continues his brutal journey forward. Meanwhile, at the outpost where the boy and the others had already arrived, a French survivor appears and asks for shelter. The men demand money in return, but the Frenchman doesn't have much. However, he gives them some coins and a bottle. That bottle turns out to be the same one Bridger had left behind on Glass's body when they buried him. Bridger assumes Glass is dead, but believes his son, Hawk, may still be alive. The Frenchman explains he found the bottle about 30 miles away, but Fitzgerald, hearing all this, realizes something terrifying. Glass might still be alive. Soon, Captain Henry, Bridger, and their team arrive at the spot where the Frenchman had found the bottle. And there, to their utter disbelief, they find Glass alive. Captain Henry is stunned because Fitzgerald and Bridger had claimed he was dead. Overwhelmed, the captain immediately orders Bridger to be arrested. Furious, Captain rushes back to camp looking for Fitzgerald, but he's already vanished. And he also finds the money locker open. Fitzgerald has stolen all the money and disappeared. Now the captain makes a decision. He will hunt Fitzgerald down himself. Not only has Fitzgerald murdered Glass's son, he's also betrayed the entire outpost. Glass tells the captain that he's coming with him. He also explains that Bridger knew nothing about Hawk's death. Fitzgerald had lied to him too. After that, Glass and the captain set out to track down Fitzgerald. They follow the trail left by his horse's hooves, but after traveling a long distance, the tracks disappear. At that point, they decide to split up. While the captain is searching, Fitzgerald suddenly appears from behind a large rock and holds him at gunpoint. The captain tells him that he's wanted for murder and must return with him, but Fitzgerald refuses and shoots to captain. Hearing the gunshot, Glass rushes to the spot and finds the captain's lifeless body lying on the ground with no one else in sight. Using his wits, Glass breaks off a large branch and ties it to the captain's back to keep his posture upright, then props him onto a horse. Then Glass himself lies flat on the second horse, pretending to be a corpse, so that Fitzgerald will think the man riding upright is Glass and the body lying down is the captain. And the plan works. Seeing them, Fitzgerald assumes the front rider is Glass and the body in the back is the captain. He shoots the leading rider, who falls off. Believing he has killed Glass, Fitzgerald slowly approaches, but when he flips over the body, he's shocked to see it's actually the captain. At that moment, Glass rises from the rear horse and opens fire, hitting Fitzgerald in the shoulder. Though wounded, Fitzgerald manages to escape, and Glass chases after him. Their pursuit leads them to a riverbank where a brutal fight breaks out between the two. Both of them are badly injured. Just then, across the river, a group of Native Americans appear, the same ones who had been hunting them. As Glass prepares to kill Fitzgerald, he remembers the words of the man who once gave him meat to eat. Revenge is in the hands of God, not man. So instead of killing Fitzgerald himself, Glass lets him float down the river. Fitzgerald ends up on the other side, where the Native Americans capture and kill him. Then they cross over to Glass, but instead of harming him, they let him go because they've already found the girl they were searching for. She is the same girl Glass had once rescued from the Frenchman. The Native Americans move on, leaving Glass behind. And with this, the movie comes to an end. Let me know in the comments which film you'd like to hear about next. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel.